control active. Here we go. Oh my goodness. Here we go. Oh, a little bit of slip off the line, and then she goes. One of the most common questions I get asked is M3 touring or M5 touring. Before we answer that question, I want to say a massive thanks to GT85 for sponsoring this video. For anyone that's new to the channel, I actually ran an M3 touring for 2 years and about 20,000 miles. And 3 months ago, I picked up this fire red M5 touring from Mr. Tony Lewis. The lovely BMW UK press team sent me out this facelifted skyscraper grey M3 touring to do today's comparison. Let's start with pricing. A base M3 touring will set you back £92,000 here in the UK, whereas a base M5 touring will set you back £113,500. So there's roughly 21.5 grand difference between the two cars. Although this M3 being a UK press car, it's fully loaded. It has the ultimate pack, it has carbon ceramic brakes, and actually has an on-the-road retail price of just over £115,000, which makes it almost identical to my lightly spec'd M5 touring. But I've actually reached out to Mr. Tony Lewis to get some finance quotes on both of these cars, because let's face it, most people, including me, buy these sort of things using finance. I'll put the full details in the description below, but roughly speaking, with 10 grand down on both cars over 3 years with 10,000 miles, you're looking at about £1,100 a month for the M3 touring and about £1,550 for the M5 touring. But obviously those figures will vary throughout the year. So I'll put Tony's email address below in the description. Make sure you drop him a line if you're looking at getting yourself a new BMW. Because these are both M cars, you could argue that what's under their bonnets is the most important ingredient, and they are very different ingredients. Let's start with the M3 Touring. Under here we have an S58, which is a 3-litre inline-6 twin turbo. And because this is the recently updated version, BMW have added an extra 20 horsepower. So it now has a total output of 530 horsepower and 650 newton meters of torque. All of that power and torque runs through a ZF 8-speed automatic gearbox and is fed to the ground via BMW's switchable M xDrive system. BMW claim this would do the 0 to 62 sprint in just 3.6 seconds, and we'll be testing that out a little bit later. Now for the M5 hybrid, M hybrid. Under here we have an S68, which is a 4.4 litre V8 twin turbo, and it's also mated to an 8-speed automatic gearbox. But between the gearbox and the engine, we have an electrical motor, which is part of the M hybrid system. And when you combine that electric motor and this V8 combustion engine, well, BMW claim this has a total output of 727 horsepower. But more impressive than that, it has 1,000 newton meters of torque. And thankfully, all of that is fed to the ground via BMW's M xDrive system. BMW claim that this will do the 0 to 62 sprint in, yes, you've guessed it, 3.6 seconds, exactly the same as the M3 Touring. You might be sitting there thinking, how does that make sense? Because this has almost 200 horsepower more than the M3. It also has an extra 350 newton meters of torque. This is 600 kilos heavier than the M3 Touring. And I remember when these came out about 2.5 years ago and people said that that was a heavy car. Well, this is in a completely different league. And that's why the acceleration figures are basically identical. Michelin Pilot Sport 4S's on the M3 and Michelin Pilot Sport S5s on the M5. Working with GT85 this year has been amazing. A product that I've used for well over 25 years. Yikes, that makes me feel really old. It's a multi-purpose spray that lubricates, cleans and protects. I've used it on my mountain bike since the late 90s, but in more recent years around the house for various DIY jobs, on my cars and now on my motorbike. And even though I'm extremely familiar with GT85, I'm still discovering new uses for the best kept secret. Modern cars are stuffed full of plastics, especially under their bonnets. And over time, those plastics start to look really grubby, even on cars like my 4-month-old M5. A quick spray and wipe down of GT85 on those plastics will bring back that new shine. It will also protect them for the winter months ahead. And the last thing to talk about is, well, my engine bay now has the familiar GT85 scent. Those who know will know. Get yourself some GT85 using the link in the description below. Right, let's get back to M3 versus M5. Before we take these out for a drive, I think we should look at their boots, because after all, they are both Tourings. And the people that buy these sort of cars, including me, buy them because they are practical. They're great at lugging bikes and shopping around, and also Peggy's. Peggy absolutely loved my M3 Touring, and I think she actually prefers my M5 Touring. But on paper, they are both exactly the same size with the seats folded up, 500 litres and 500 litres. But I just don't believe that, because visually the M5 looks bigger. So today we're going to use the industry standard measuring tool. Cans of GT85. Almost 3 bottles tall. Now with the M5 Touring, well, it's exactly the same height, just under 3 cans. It's exactly 4 bottles deep. It's just over 4 cans. So I make that about a lid's worth longer or deeper than the M3. And between the rear wheel arches, it is 3 3/4 bottles wide. 4 cans and a sample can wide, making it considerably wider than the M3. Well, to my reckoning, and using our accurate measuring cans, I think that the M5 Touring definitely has a bigger boot. But, and there is a big but, the new 5 Series and the M5 doesn't have this. And that is such a wonderful and useful feature. I really miss that about the M5. Well, I tell you what, it's really nice being back behind the wheel of an M3. I've really missed mine. That's not to say that the M5 has been disappointing, and obviously we're going to get onto that car's good and bad points compared to this very soon. But there's no getting away from the fact that the M3, especially in touring guys, is such a complete package. But let's start with the interior. Driving position, spot on, especially with the carbon bucket seats. I'm sitting so low. I've got loads of room above my head. I could wear a helmet in here. No issues whatsoever. I know that because I've done several track days in G-Series M3s over the years. Ergonomically, everything is spot on and where I want it. I've got the familiar iDrive controller down here. I have operating system 8.5 in front of me, which is the same as the M5. And everything just works so well. Yes, I do wish that modern M cars still had dials and not the curved display, but that's just a minor complaint. A bigger complaint is actually referring to this car's spec. In the intro, we talked about it being, well, in my opinion, fully loaded, because it has things like the Ultimate Pack, which only 6 months ago meant it was the ultimate package. It contained all options, but no longer. You see, when they updated the M3, and I assume the M4, to this latest LCI guys, that ultimate pack that I think was £9,000 or £10,000 is now £6,500 or £7,000. So you're thinking, bonus, I've saved a couple of grand for the same package, except you haven't at all. The ultimate pack in this car is no longer ultimate at all. For starters, you can't get laser lights, which used to be part of the ultimate package in the pre-facelift car. You can't get laser lights at all on any of the updated 3 Series or M3s. And the second complaint is this trim. I don't like it at all. It's the base trim. But the pre-facelift M3s came standard with the carbon interior trim. So I'd never seen any other trims in M3s or M4s before they updated the car. Now you get this base trim. And if I had to describe what this base trim looks like, I would say it's a neck curtain trim. It would be offensive in a 320D, although they probably don't make that anymore, in a 320i. But in a M3 costing well over £100,000, that's not good enough. But that's a base trim. I'm assuming you have to pay another £1,000 or 1,500 quid to get your carbon trim. And my last complaint is relating to that base trim. If you don't opt for the interior carbon trim or pack, you don't get the carbon paddles. Now, the carbon paddles have been standard on M3s and M4s since they launched back in 2021, but not anymore. You've got to pay extra to have them back in. So I'm left with paddles that have come straight out of a regular 3 Series. And again, when I jumped in it yesterday for the first time, I was all excited to be back at M3, and I was like, wait a second, what are these? It just feels so bizarre. I'm aware of it being an M3 because I'm in these fabulous seats and I can hear that S58. That's a little bit cheeky that BMW have stripped out so much standard spec in these wonderful cars. But once you get past that, as we already talked about, the driving position couldn't be better. It couldn't be more adjustable. And the ergonomics and the tech in here are second to none. They are brilliant. And I don't care what anyone says. Maybe I'm sounding like a BMW fanboy, but I think BMW's iDriver operating system, especially the latest ones, are really, really good, really intuitive. So all of that gets my thumbs up. Let's rewind to a little bit earlier when I jumped in the back, and I can let you know what it's like. Right then guys, you now join me in the back of the M3 Touring. My good friend Andy is behind the wheel of the car. Andy actually helped me film this shoot over the past couple of days, so big thanks to him. Before jumping back here, I made sure the front passenger seat was set up for me. I'm 6'4", so a large adult. Jumping back here, first thing to talk about is how much legroom I've got. Good 2.5 to 3 inches of extra legroom, which is really, really impressive. And I think some of that is due to the fact that this car has the optional carbon bucket seats. I have talked about those seats and the fact that they add more interior space into your M2, M3 and M4 because they're a lot thinner. So therefore they take up less space and therefore they should, in theory, give you more legroom in the back, and it appears they do. Headroom, again, masses of headroom. Even with my sunglasses on the top of my head, I've got no issues whatsoever. Ergonomics, it's very comfortable back here. It is a 3-seat bench. If I put that up, there's an extra seat belt just here. But as always, with the majority of cars, the center bench is the short straw. You wouldn't want to spend too long sitting there. But the side seats like this one, really comfortable. My arms are comfortable, ergonomics are perfect. I feel very much like I'm sitting in the front passenger seat, which is brilliant. The backrest, maybe a little bit upright, but it's not too bad at all. And I reckon I could spend a lot of time back here. In fact, last year I took my parents abroad in my M3 Touring, and although one of them would sit in the front with me, whoever was in the back never complained once, and I can see why. There's lots of vision, again, thanks to these carbon seats that take up less space, so there's more glass that I can see around me. We've got 3-way climate control, which I think is standard in the M3 and maybe the M4. And we have some USB-C charging ports down there. We have some cup holders up here. Andy's got everything set in comfort, so the softest setting for the dampers, and it does feel remarkably good back here. In fact, no different to when I'm sitting in the front. And I know that might sound a little bit silly to some of you, but a lot of cars, estate cars especially, feel very different when you're in the back. And it's going to be interesting to see if that is the case when I jump in the M5 Touring a little bit later. So space practicality, really good. Creature comforts, really good. And actual suspension comfort, very good. Also, cabin noise, tyre roar, next to nothing back here. It's really, really nice and quiet. So yeah, I have to say, I'm very, very impressed. I knew it was going to be good, but I didn't think it was going to be that good. Maybe it's down to the fact that Andy's driving. He's such a great chauffeur. As an overall score, I'll probably give this a 9 out of 10. So well done to BMW. Now we're going to talk about what this car's like as a daily. I've knocked everything back into comfort because the sort of person that's going to buy an M3 Touring or an M5 Touring, like me, is probably going to use it as a normal car 80 or 90% of the time. And very occasionally, on a weekend, take it for a spirited drive along their favourite road or potentially take it out on track. And I have to say, the second you knock it back, everything becomes very chilled in here. The fake engine sound that's in the cabin, that seems to reduce. The throttle response becomes a lot less responsive, which is a good thing because you don't want the car to be jerking you around all the time and reminding you that it's an M car. You want the car to turn back into a regular 3 Series, really. That's a perfect daily, something that can be a 330D 1 second without the efficiency and an M3 the next second. And I know from owning several of these that they do that extremely well. And I love it. We're sitting at 45 miles an hour here and we're in 7th gear at about 1200 RPM. It's lovely. It will even do 30 miles to the gallon if you're not pushing it. So as a daily tool, I think it ticks pretty much every single box. The ride quality, although I am aware that we're not in a 330D with adaptive suspension, it's definitely a bit harder edge than that. A lot of that might come down to the bigger wheels and the much wider rubber, but most of that comes down to the fact that the spring rate on this car is still a lot stiffer than it would be on a regular 3 Series. But I'm not getting rattled around or shaken to death in here. It feels respectably really, really good. But at the same time, if you ramp the suspension up from Comfort to Sport Plus, which is the stiffest setting, I can instantly feel every single imperfection from the road ahead. You simply wouldn't use Sport Plus on your M2, M3 or M4 if you're from the UK on a road. You'd only ever use that if you did a track day at somewhere like Silverstone. Here, I'm in Comfort. If I want a little bit more sportiness or support, then I would go up to Sport. But that is literally it. There's no need to go anywhere near Sport Plus. Let's test out this car's acceleration figures. BMW M say it will do the 0 to 62 sprint in just 3.6 seconds. Conditions outside are close to perfect. My Racebox Mini is down here and ready to go. I've got my traction and stability switched off and I'm in 4-wheel drive. My left foot is hard down on the brake, my right foot is hard down on the accelerator. Preparing launch control active, here we go. Oh my goodness! And there's 60 miles an hour. 3.16 seconds. 3.16 seconds is blisteringly fast, and I bet you this car will get close to that come rain or shine. For this last bit, I'm going to talk about driving dynamics and what this car gives back to me as someone who enjoys driving. I pressed my preset M1 button, brought up all my favourite settings, and straight away I feel so at home in this car. It's unbelievable. Honestly, the first time I jumped back in this yesterday, which was the first time I'd driven an M3 Touring for about 4 or 5 months, I couldn't believe how good it was. I felt dialed in instantly, like within 50 yards, I felt like I knew exactly where this car's limits were, within reason, obviously. I just love it. And I know that these seats help a lot because I'm connected to the chassis and I can feel a lot more of what's going on beneath me. And although these G-Series M cars, well, the M2, the M3 and the M4 really lack steering feel, especially with this new wheel that seems to be a little bit fatter than the old wheel, I still feel so connected to it, and it is just such an absolute weapon of a car. 1 minute, it's a really comfortable and practical 3 Series. The next minute, it's an absolute rocket ship. Unbelievable. It is all the package anyone could ever want. Why did I get rid of mine? Now we're in the M5, and the first thing to talk about is just how big it feels in comparison to the M3, which we know is already a big car. It just takes up so much of the road. There is no room for error, whereas in the smaller M3, you feel like you've got a few inches to play with. The cabin, well, to me, the current 5 Series cabin or interior, including the M5, has always been a little bit of a disappointment. I can see that BMW have cut a lot of corners in terms of cost saving, and in some places they've just gone a little bit too far, like the door cards or panels, if you like. This switchgear down here has come straight out of a 1 Series, and I don't really want that in my 5 Series or M5. There's a lot of shiny plastics everywhere, a lot of piano black down here that in my 3-month-old car is already scratched and marked up. So God knows what that's going to look like in 2 or 3 years. And even the carbon trim, although it is nicer than that net curtain trim that's in the M3, it's not as nice as the carbon trim that you can option into your M3. The steering wheel is even bigger and fatter, but it's quite nice to feel, and at least we have the carbon paddles. They come standard in the M5 and the M5 Touring. At least they do for now. I'm sure BMW will start charging us for those very soon, so let's keep an eye out. Something that is a plus point in this car is the fact that I've got a panoramic roof. It doesn't open, the blind just slides back and forth. I've got it closed today, more so for filming, and also it's nearly 30 degrees out there and just keeps the direct sunlight out. But 99% of the year here in the UK, I'll have that open and it will let in some much needed light. The actual driving position is really good, as you would expect in a BMW, especially an M product. It's not as good as the M3, but I think a lot of that has to do with the optional carbon buckets that go a lot lower and suit my lanky frame. Now, let's see what this car is like in the back. Right, now I'm in the back of my M5 Touring. First thing to talk about is this has got the big glass, I think they call it a pan roof. It doesn't open, but it's a nice big glass panel that brings in loads of light. So it gives the feeling of so much extra space back here. If you have a family with kids or regular backseat passengers and you're looking at buying one of these, definitely get the glass panel, because it really makes the interior a nicer place to sit in, especially when you're in the back. Again, I have set the front passenger seat up for me, and getting back here, well, there's a similar amount of leg room, maybe a little bit more, but not much in it. My legs and knees feel like they're quite a bit higher, and actually the second I got back here, Andy looked back and said, wow, you seem to be sitting a lot higher than you were in the M3, where we both seem to be a similar sort of level, but I feel like I'm looking down more on Andy. The problem with that and me is my head is now very close to the headlining, and with my sunglasses on the top of my head, I can feel them actually touching. Maybe if you didn't go for the glass panel, you'd get a little bit more headroom. I don't know. But again, I'm 6'4". You're probably not going to get too many lankier people on the back seat of your 5 Series Touring or M5 Touring. Creature comforts, well, this car actually has 4-way climate control. A couple in the front and a couple in the back. I have USB-C charging ports. We've also got these adapters in the back of the front seats, which I think you can plug in like iPad accessories, etc. Down here we do have some cup holders, but we don't have a cover. And a bit like the rest of the interior, it just feels a bit cheaper than the one that's in the M3, which is bizarre. As do the tiny little headrests. Now the headrests in the M3 were small, but these are even smaller. And the rear bench is a little bit more upright as well. I definitely feel like I'm sitting a little bit sort of more forward, which obviously helps with boot space. But yeah, I'd quite like that to be laid back a bit more. I feel like I'm being thrown around all over the place back here. Every time we hit a bump, this car seems to exaggerate the bump. It's almost like there is absolutely no rebound on the shock. So it's like we're just running on springs and bouncing down the road in places. Coming up to a really bumpy section here. This really tests cars, and I have to say back here, I'm feeling every single imperfection in that piece of tarmac. Every single imperfection. Feels like my arse is being dragged along the ground. It's that bad, honestly. Also, there's a little bit more tyre roar and cabin noise in this car compared to the M3 Touring. Oh my God, the ride quality is just horrendous. Anyway, as an overall rear bench score, I'm gonna unfortunately give this car, my car, a 6 out of 10. And that makes me sad. Now, let's talk about what the M5 is like as a daily. We already know it has a massive boot, definitely bigger than the M3. Ignore what BMW claim. There is no way that the boots are the same size. That is a fact. We now know what it's like in the rear of the cabin, and although it's relatively comfortable and there's plenty for your rear seat passengers to play with back there, it's no more spacious than the M3. And the ride quality, at least back there, seems to let that experience down a little bit. And I was hoping and assuming that rear seat comfort would definitely be a plus point for the M5. It appears that it's not. It's definitely no better, and in a few areas worse, than the M3 Touring. That really puzzles me, because this car, it's definitely bigger to look at. It's definitely bigger with a tape measure. And as I've already talked about, it definitely feels bigger when you're driving it along the same piece of tarmac. As I briefly mentioned in the back seat, unfortunately, the M5 Saloon and Touring seems to suffer in the suspension department. Now, if you'd asked me 2 or 3 months ago, when I'd spent a small amount of time in the new M5, I would have said that the ride quality was really rather good, especially compared to the F90 M5 Competition, which was a big seller here in the UK. That thing was very stiffly sprung, and in terms of ride quality was probably its weakest point. But after living with this car for now 3 months, I've actually uncovered some faults in the suspension and the ride control, the way this car manages its weight. Because it's always been a puzzle for me that a 2.5 ton estate car is so good when you push it hard. And this car is, and we'll get to that shortly. When you take it along a road like this at normal speeds, you can just feel the body constantly moving around. It never settles down. If you hit one little ripple or small bump, then the car just starts dancing around, and it just really struggles to control all of that weight. And I'd never felt that until recently, and now I can't unfeel it. Every time I take this car out, I can feel it moving around like this all the time. And it does get a bit tiresome. Let's test out the M5's acceleration figures. BMW claim this will do the 0 to 62 sprint in 3.6 seconds, which is exactly the same as the M3 Touring. My Racebox Mini is down here and ready to go. I have traction and stability switched off, but I'm in 4-wheel drive sport because I find the M5 seems to launch better when you're sending more power and torque to the rear axle, whereas the M3 seems to launch better when you're in four-wheel drive and you've got more of an equal amount of torque and power. My left foot is hard down on the brake, my right foot is on the accelerator, launch control ready, here we go. Oh, a little bit of slip off the line, and then she goes. And there's 60 miles an hour, 3.28 seconds. I want to say really impressive, but that's about a tenth of a second slower than the M3 Touring. But it did seem to slip off the line a little bit more, not get its traction down as well as it did in the M3 Touring. But that is still very, very impressive for a 2.5 ton estate car. Well, although it wasn't quite as fast as the M3 to 60 miles an hour, once you're driving this car and behind the wheel, it genuinely feels faster absolutely everywhere. And I've just jumped out of the M3, so I can categorically tell you that. Any gear, you put your foot down, and it's just so strong. You can feel all of that torque and power from the V8, and of course, the electrical energy as well. Combined, it is mind-blowingly fast. And I know this M5 is a fraction of a second slower than the F90 M5 competition to 60 miles an hour, but everywhere else, in everyday use, it is just so quick. And where this car really starts to shine, which doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever, is when you engage your M1 preset button and it brings up all of your favorite settings. And this car has got a lot of settings, more than the M3. Energy recovery stuff on there as well. Obviously we've got the MX drive. I'm in four-wheel drive sport, got all the traction stability switched off. I'm in manual, Sport Plus for the throttle, so it gives me maximum power from the engine, combustion engine, and from the electric motor. And I've put the chassis into sport because it needs that extra support. That's the other thing. Comfort doesn't give you comfort, but if you start pushing on in comfort, then you get a lot of body roll, whereas if you put it into sport, then you get more support. Then you apply some throttle in any gear, that was fifth. And it's ballistic. It slows down incredibly well. This is on the non-option steel brakes. They feel strong enough for me. Come down a couple of gears, tip it in, and it's just brilliant. It shouldn't be able to do that. It's 2.5 tons. It just feels wonderful. And actually, I've referred to this a few times with recent M5 videos. This car has more steering feel than the M2, M3, and M4, in my opinion. It's not oozing with steering feel, of course it's not. It's an electrical setup, got a big fat wheel, but to me, I can feel more of what's going on with the front axle, which is a good thing in a car this big, this heavy, and this fast. But yeah, it is surprising that on paper, if anything, this car should do the wafting M5 thing better in comfort and all of that. But actually, when you ramp everything up and you start pushing it, that's where it comes alive. And I know that's half of what an M car should do. It's just a little bit disappointing that it doesn't do the other half that well, especially when you compare it to the M3. And I think that's kind of my conclusion in short. The M3 Touring is a better package. It's a little bit more enjoyable when you're pushing on hard because it's a bit smaller. You have to rev that S58 out to give you the rewards, whereas this just gives you power and torque everywhere. But when you switch everything off and you want it to be a 3 Series, it's a 3 Series. And on top of that, it gives you 90% of the practicality that this car has, but in a much smaller package. So yeah, do I regret getting an M5 Touring? Not at all. And I'm looking forward to running this for the next 9 months or so. I might see if I can hand it back to Tony early next year, but let's see. I might grow to love it more and appreciate things. But I've definitely recently uncovered some of its weak points. And I think the biggest weak point is the suspension and sort of overall body control. It really struggles with a lot of that. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this comparison video. They are lengthy and long to make. So massive thanks once again to GT85 for supporting me throughout the year and supporting this specific video. Make sure you check them out using the link in the description below and give them a follow on Instagram. And a huge thanks to my good friend Andy for being so useful over the past couple of days and helping me film this video. Until the next one, take it easy and I'll see you soon. Cheers.